Ever feel like those FAing interview questions? They're like, designed to make you sweat a little.
Ah.
Yeah. But, word on the street is it's not just about being like this amazing coder.
Mm-hmm.
It's about showing off how you think, right?
Mm-hmm.
How you approach a problem.
And there's this like surprisingly powerful technique, I think, that can really like make all the difference.
It's a secret weapon,
Okay.
kind of.
So spill the tea. What is this secret weapon?
It's called dry running your code.
Dry running your code.
That's relevant beyond the interview, too.
Okay. So dry running your code. So like, what is that? It sounds like something you do to your laundry. It's less about wrinkles in your clothes and more about wrinkles in your thinking.
Okay, I like that.
So imagine this. You are about to bake a cake. But instead of just tossing all the ingredients together, you meticulously walk through the recipe in your head.
Mm-hmm.
You're picturing each step. You're mentally checking if you have enough eggs, if the oven temperature's right.
Oh, yeah. Before you even preheat.
All before you even preheat. Exactly.
Yeah.
Dry running code is shockingly similar.
Okay. So instead of just like reading the code, you're really like living it line by line as if you were the computer.
Precisely. You are systematically stepping through each line, visualizing how the code would execute, anticipating any potential hiccups.
Oh.
Kind of like a detective,
Yes.
searching for clues.
Looking for like logical errors and all those little things that can like trip you up.
Variable mix-ups, those dreaded infinite loops that make programmers tear their hair out.
So it's not just about like getting the right answer. It's like really showing off your thought process, your ability to break down complex problems. Let's be honest, like your ability to not completely lose it under pressure.
It's hit the nail on the head. I mean, interviewers, they're less interested in whether you can like memorize some obscure syntax.
Right.
And much more interested in how you approach a problem. Do you jump in head first or do you take a methodical, structured approach?
Right.
Dry running demonstrates this beautifully.
Yeah. It's kind of like that moment in like math class when the teacher's like, show your work.
Exactly.
Like the answer alone isn't enough.
Right.
They want to see like the logic, the steps.
Yes.
The aha moments that got you there.
And just like in math, breaking down a complex equation into smaller, manageable steps just makes it less intimidating.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
It's the same with coding.
Yeah.
Dry running helps you avoid that deer in the headlights feeling when you're staring down a whiteboard full of code.
Totally. That actually reminds me of this time I was planning a trip. And this trip had like multiple flights, different time zones, like hotel bookings, all this stuff.
Oh, wow.
And instead of just like winging it, I sat down and I mentally walked through every single step of the itinerary. And guess what?
Why?
I caught a booking conflict that would have totally ruined the trip.
Oh, no.
It's amazing how like this technique works beyond just code.
Oh, it's a testament to the power of systematic thinking. It's something that we can all benefit from, programmer or not.
Okay. So we're sold on the why. But let's get down to like brass tacks here. How do you actually dry run code effectively? Like, give us the step-by-step.
Absolutely. Let's break it down. So let's say you're tasked with writing some code to find the largest number in a list.
Okay.
First order of business, grab a pen and paper. Or, better yet, if you've got a whiteboard, utilize that whiteboard.
Ooh, whiteboard.
Right.
Fancy.
So, ditch the keyboard, embrace the analog.
I love it.
Now, instead of diving into, a complex algorithm right away, you want to start with like a simple input just to illustrate the concept.
Okay.
So let's just say we have the list. 1, 3, 5, 2, 4.
Got it.
Okay. Next step is imagine you're setting up the playing field for your code. So write down any variables you might need, just like a good chef would lay out their ingredients before they begin.
Okay. So no jumping in head first.
No.
We're being very deliberate, setting the stage.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. You are going to go slowly, methodically, through each line of your code and act as the computer,
Okay.
executing each instruction.
Mm-hmm.
As you do this, you're going to update the values of your variables on your paper, on your whiteboard, just as the computer would in its memory.
Okay.
This is like taking a peek behind the curtain while the code is running.
So it's like you become this like human compiler.
Yes.
taking the code for a test drive inside your own head.
Exactly. And just like on a real test drive, you need to pay close attention to everything. Loops, those are like the carnival rides that just keep going round and round until a condition is met.
Mm-hmm.
Conditional statements, those if-then-else moments, they add a little bit of decision-making to the mix.
Okay.
And then we've got function calls. These are taking a detour to another set of instructions before coming back to where you left off.
Oh, okay.
Right. So there's a lot to keep track of.
So many moving parts.
There are.
It's like you're taking those lines of code on like a thrilling ride through the like amusement park of your brain.
That's a good way to put it.
But like with all this meticulousness, isn't there a risk of like getting bogged down in the details and kind of missing like the big picture?
That's where those intermediate results you've been jotting down, they come in handy.
Okay.
They're like mile markers on a map. They kind of show you the code's journey.
Okay.
And by keeping track of them, you can zoom out, see that overall progress, make sure you're on the right track.
Right. We want to make sure that our code actually does what it's supposed to do.
Exactly.
So like after this whole like epic mental journey, then we like compare our final result to like the expected outcome.
Yes.
Right. So in our example, we'd want to see that our code correctly identified 5 as the largest number in the list.
Right.
Like checking if our mental GPS got us to the right location.
Spot on, spot on. And here's where the true magic of dry running, especially in an interview setting, comes in.
Right.
Remember we were talking about show your work.
Yeah.
Well, now imagine doing all of this while explaining your thought process out loud to the interviewer.
So like instead of being like stuck in our own heads, we're kind of like giving them a front row seat to our mental gymnastics.
Exactly. And believe it or not, this is where a lot of candidates, they stumble. They might nail the code itself.
Oh, really?
But when it comes to articulating their approach,
They clam up.
they clam up, yeah. But dry running, it's not about silence.
Right.
It's about transforming that internal monologue into like a clear, concise explanation.
Yeah, it's about like proving that you're not just some code writing machine, but like an actual problem solver who can communicate effectively.
Yeah.
Which, let's face it, that's like crucial in any job.
100%, yeah. Now, while our simple finding the largest number example, it's a great starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Real-world coding, it often throws us these curveballs.
For sure.
And that is where the fascinating world of test cases comes into play.
Yeah, test cases. I feel like they've always been this like mystery to me.
Yeah,
like all these different scenarios and edge cases.
Right.
It's like trying to prepare for like every possible disaster movie plot.
It's a good way to think about it.
So like what makes a good test case?
Well, think of test cases as a way to simulate all the weird and wonderful ways that users might interact with your code in the wild.
Okay.
Right? It's about being one step ahead, anticipating those potential problems before they become major headaches.
So you got to be a little paranoid in a good way.
Exactly. You want to put your code through the ringer. And that starts with kind of understanding the different types of test cases that you can use.
Okay.
So the most straightforward are your simple cases, just like our initial dry run example.
Mm-hmm.
They establish a baseline, make sure your code functions correctly under normal circumstances.
So that's like making sure the car starts before we take it for a spin on the Autobahn.
Exactly, exactly. But what about those unexpected detours, right?
Yeah.
Those user error moments.
Yes.
Those make developers break out into a cold sweat. Talking about edge cases.
Okay.
Those boundary conditions where things can get a little dicey.
Right.
Let's go back to our finding the largest number example. A simple case might use a list like 1, 3, 5, 2, 4. An edge case would ask, well, what if the list is empty?
Oh,
Or what if all the numbers are the same?
Oh, sneaky. It's like those trick questions on a test to see who's really paying attention.
Precisely. You want to throw scenarios at your code that it might not be explicitly designed to handle and see how gracefully it fails. Because, believe me, in the real world, graceful failure is a valuable skill.
So instead of our code just like crashing and burning, it's more like, hey, someone's not quite right here.
Exactly. Now, beyond simple cases and edge cases, we also have special cases.
Okay.
These are kind of specific to the problem you're trying to solve, require a deeper understanding of the task at hand. For instance, if we were dealing with a sorted list,
Okay.
we need to consider how that changes our approach to finding the largest number.
So it's like getting into the nitty-gritty, understanding the nuances,
Yes.
and then like tailoring our tests accordingly.
Yes, exactly. It's not just about quantity. It's about quality, thinking strategically about those scenarios.
Right.
And don't forget about testing with different data types.
Oh, right.
What if instead of a number, the user inputs a letter or a symbol?
Right.
Does your code have a contingency plan for that?
It's like prepping for a dinner party and making sure you have, like, options for all your guests, even the ones with, like, the most unexpected dietary restrictions.
I like that analogy.
You're really making me think of all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah, it's good to be prepared.
But isn't there a risk of, like, going overboard with all these test cases?
Yeah.
I mean, we could be here all day. We do have to actually write some code at some point.
That's true. It's all about finding that sweet spot. Great. Being thorough, but also efficient with your testing. Think of it like packing for a trip. You want to be prepared for different scenarios, but, you don't need to pack your entire wardrobe for a weekend getaway.
Yeah, no packing the kitchen sink for our code either.
Okay.
But okay, so let's say we have our code, we've got our test cases. What are, like, some common pitfalls we should watch out for during, like, the dry run itself? Those don't be that person moments in a coding interview.
Oh, I've seen it all.
I bet.
One of the biggest blunders, I think, is rushing through the code.
Okay.
It's easy to get, flustered in an interview.
Right.
And you just want to speed through it.
Right.
But that's a recipe for overlooking crucial details.
It's like trying to speed read a recipe while you're, like, baking a souffle.
Yes. Things are bound to collapse.
Exactly.
Take your time, savor each line of code, explain your thought process clearly.
Okay.
Another common mistake is neglecting those edge cases we talked about.
Right.
It's tempting to focus on the happy path. That scenario where everything works perfectly. But those boundary conditions, that's often where the real bugs lurk.
Right. So don't be afraid to be a little mischievous with those test cases.
Yeah.
Really, like, push the limits of your code.
Absolutely, yeah. Challenge your assumptions. Think like a user who's trying to break your program and see how your code holds up.
Okay.
Now, this might seem kind of obvious, but pay close attention to variable scope.
Okay.
This is especially crucial when you're dealing with nested functions, functions within functions, like those Russian nesting dolls, or loops that repeat a section of code. It's easy to lose track of which variable is being used where.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Yep.
Got the error message to prove it.
Exactly.
Anything else that, like, trips people up?
Oh, definitely. Mishandling reference types.
Okay.
These are like special containers. They hold data,
Okay.
but instead of making a copy, they just point to the original data's location. So changes you make within a function can have these, like, unexpected ripple effects elsewhere in the code.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like, think of it like sharing a Google Doc.
Okay.
Anyone with access can make changes that everyone else can see.
Right.
So collaboration can be dangerous if you're not careful.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But speaking of collaboration, let's talk about how to actually, like, improve those dry running skills. Beyond just, like, practicing on coding platforms, it's got to be more than just, like, grinding leak code problems, right?
You're absolutely right. While platforms like LeetCode, they're fantastic for familiarizing yourself with different types of problems and testing your solutions. There are more engaging and, dare I say, fun ways to hone those dry running skills.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's more exciting than staring at a screen full of code?
2 words. Peer review.
Good.
Grab a coding buddy, join a study group, find a mentor. The key is to engage with others. Review each other's code.
So, like, have, like, a workout buddy, but for your brain.
Exactly. Having someone else walk through your code, point out potential issues, explain their thought process.
Right.
It's incredibly valuable. It's like having a fresh set of eyes to catch those errors you might have just kind of glazed over.
Right. And, like, even just explaining your code to someone else,
Yeah.
it forces you to, like, really crystallize your thinking.
Yes.
Articulate it clearly, which is super crucial in those interviews.
Yes, it is.
It's one thing to, like, understand it in your own head,
Yeah.
but, like, a whole other thing to explain it to someone else.
100%. And let's be honest, sometimes it's just more fun to geek out about code with other people who get it.
Yeah, totally.
Another tip, don't be afraid to get visual.
Okay.
If you're grappling with a complex algorithm, try drawing diagrams, creating flowcharts, or even using some visualization tools. Sometimes seeing the process unfold visually, it can be a game changer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, like, whiteboards, flowcharts, maybe even acting it out with, like, sock puppets, if that helps.
Hey, whatever works, right? The key is to find what resonates with you and helps you internalize those concepts.
Right.
But while those technical skills are paramount,
Mm,
don't underestimate the power of soft skills in an interview setting.
right. So it's not just about what you know, but it's like how you think, how you communicate, how you approach challenges.
Exactly.
It's about like showing that you're like a well-rounded individual,
Yes.
not just a coding machine.
Precisely. Interviewers are looking for candidates who are not only technically proficient, but they're also good communicators. They're eager learners. They're passionate problem solvers.
Right.
They want to see your enthusiasm.
It's about showing them the human behind the code,
Yes.
like the person they'd actually want to work with.
Exactly. Exactly. So as you're practicing your dry running, and trust me, practice is key.
Right.
Don't forget to showcase your personality. Let your passion for problem solving shine through.
I love it. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We went from the basics of like what dry running is all the way to like acing those interviews, even applying those skills to other areas of life.
That's a versatile tool.
It really is.
That's right. Remember, that ability to systematically think through a problem, to anticipate those challenges, articulate your approach clearly. It's so valuable, and not just in coding, in any field.
Totally. Totally. It's like they say, practice doesn't make perfect, it makes progress.
That's a good one.
So keep practicing those dry runs. Keep those test cases coming. And don't forget to have a little fun along the way.
Have some fun.
This is your chance to shine, to land that dream job, to become a true coding ninja. And with that, we'll catch you in our next deep dive.